All right, all right, all right. I think we're live. Yes, we're live. Hot dog. Hot dog. Yeah, this is where the guest is supposed to like freeze and make me think that they're frozen and freak me out at this point. Who was it that did that? Or they just, they started mouthing all their words so that I would think that their audio, I'd lost their audio. I'm like, oh, what happened to the audio? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right, let's see, gang. Who have we got here? We got Steve is here. Steve, we're building a system for Steve. Steve just started pulling the parts off the shelf for you just today. Rick is here. We just built, how many systems have we built for you, Rick? Nate is here. Let's see who we've got over on Facebook. And let's see, let's refresh that page. And Daniel's here. Welcome, Daniel. Glad to have you. And yeah, where is your red shirt, Anthony? I was looking forward to the red shirt. Oh, now he's muted himself. Or did I mute him? Hold on. Did I mute you?
I'm just here.
There you are. No, I did mute you. I'm sorry about that. Oh my gosh.
Don't do that because then I can't hear myself.
You shouldn't hear it yourself from me at all. Yep. So, yeah, we've actually got 9 systems that we're building right now. Holy cow. We're staying busy. Some you would think all of them would be for churches, but some for churches, some for schools, one for an emergency management agency up in Virginia, and just, yeah, it's good stuff.
Churches are big, but they're not the only people out there streaming.
Everybody that wants to communicate is streaming. That's the thing. Let's see. Can we move that camera just a tad? Let's see. Can anybody give us some feedback on audio? Because I was playing with the audio earlier. And you know what happens when I play with audio? Let's see. Did that do better? That's a little better. Oh, now Anthony's doing it too. Oh, my goodness. Hopefully that's just a rolling chair and not like a webcam on a jib of some kind. That's
a webcam on one of those little automatic things. That would be slick.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, what you do is you just take your kid's train set and you set it up so that it just goes back and forth, back and forth. Poor man's. All right. So this is his second drink, folks. He's just really powering through them. And you've moved your location. Either you're sitting up in your chair or you're closer to the camera than you were. Yeah.
I'll just put myself in the box, wherever you put the box.
Because I'm trying to leave you 2 fingers right there. Yeah. Are you still seeing the side-by-side shot?
Yep.
Okay. Actually, I think you're probably seeing program output. Let's check and see what I'm sending you. Video source. Yeah, you're seeing program output now. All right. Very good. Anthony's volume is a bit low. Thank you. Let's bump that
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hello, hello, hello. Join me on.
Thank you, Steve. Steve is a graduate of the vMix 101 class that we do. It was one of the premier students, teacher's pet, I would say. Maria's here, and she says Anthony is a bit low compared to Tom. So sit up straight so Marie doesn't think you're low.
I'm not low. Not
yeah,
low.
That's right. That's right.
Call me low. You talking to me?
Oh my gosh. I get all the weird guests.
I'm the only one here. Except for this guy.
Oh my gosh.
I can't even get my hand in the box. Except for
well, you have to point with the other hand. See? So you go opposite. That's it.
See, I'm new at being on this side, so
yeah.
I'll figure it out.
All right, Marie says it sounds like he's stuck in a very dampened room. Ah, okay. Well, let's take off some of the noise effect then. I mean,
a little bit too much processing.
We're running the noise editor on him, so let's drop him down to about 40%. Let's see. How does that sound, guys? All right, let's see. Steve says, great instructor. We're actually going to redo that vMix 101 class starting later this month. So we need to get some information out about it. So if you're interested in the vMix 101 class, by the way, if you're a veteran or a, what would we call it, an alumni of the vMix 101 class, you can take it again for free. So we'd love to have you, and you can pop in. Hey, Tommy Willis is here. You can pop in at any point and take any part of it, but it's always nice to come in at the beginning and be there with the rest of the community, because during that class, a community forms of people that end up getting to know each other online and sharing ideas, sometimes collaborating, definitely helping each other out. So it's good stuff. All right. Let's see. Do we have any comments on Facebook? No. And we got Steve says, what? Yeah, you can take the class again if you want to. Of course, you're not forced to. Now we have comments on Facebook. All right. Thank you very much. So yes, that's I think, Steve, that's some of the value long term, is that you can. Where is that? Let's
that's slick. That page. I didn't know you could break out the chat as its own thing.
Yeah.
I wish it would put the chat at the top and not the bottom. And reverse the order? No.
In vMix Social, it puts it at the top.
Yeah. I'm looking at the YouTube thing that you said.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Oh, you know what? No, it is. Oh, yeah. I did the time wrong. How about that? Let's go back and fix this.
Are we too early? All right,
no,
I'll see you tomorrow then.
Yeah. I did the wrong time on Facebook. I did 2:50 and it should have done 1:50. So let's see if we can do 2 o'clock. Because we're not even live on Facebook. Nope, it's not going to let me do it 2 o'clock. What about 2:10? Yeah, we can do that. Okay.
Well, mine says it's live now, but it doesn't actually show the video.
Right. Are you on Streaming Idiots group or Eastern Shore Broadcasting
Eastern
page?
Shore.
Yeah. Okay, maybe I did that one right. Let's go to that one. 1 second, please. Sorry about this. Yeah, it says video is live now, but you can't. Can you watch it? Yeah.
You can click on it, and then it'll take you over to the video. That's what I did.
Okay. There we go. All right. Awesome. 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 Awesome.
2 comments.
All right. Well,
hey, Guy. Good to see you here, man.
I saw this comment on on Facebook, and it says, and I read it quickly, and it says, Anthony Barokas is awesome. And then I went back and read it again. It was like, Anthony Burokas, this is awesome. I thought, oh my gosh, talk about a self promoter. Gee whiz, that's worse than me. Holy cow.
Well,
all right.
You didn't have any comments, so I just wanted to help.
No, that's good. Thank you. And you know, that one doesn't get a lot of traffic, but we just put it out there for future archive purposes. Jan is here. Charlie's here. Welcome. Wixton's here. And Otis is here.
From Troll Hatan?
Better you than me.
I probably massacred that.
We have a good Swedish audience. Yeah, we got a lot of Swedes. And it's always nice to meet them and hang out with them at IBC, which should be like this month. Jeez, doggone it. Oh, well.
Thank you, Wixton.
All right. Well, we are approaching the top of the hour. And it is time for the show. So Anthony, I'm gonna mute you, and then we'll start the official part of the show. That's right. And then and then I'll bring you in and hopefully remember to unmute you. Because I run about 50-50 on that. So, yeah, he's doing his best frozen imitation to try to give me a real heart failure at this point. But that's okay. I know better. All right. Oh, Bill's here. Okay, Bill may have to go through the 101 again. Well, I tell you what, going through the class again, you'll learn all new stuff because you're always building on your knowledge and you're understanding more deeply. So that's why we offer it again to alumni for free. Okay, so Anthony gets the mute. He is muted. And we're going to go back to that screen. And then we're going to, did we mute Anthony? I don't think he is muted. Yeah, I hear him differently. That's why. Okay. All right, so here we go. Let's get going. Oh my goodness. Welcome. I'm Tom Sinclair. This is Streaming Idiots. I'm so delighted you're here today. I'm really excited about today's guest. Holy cow. This is going to be a great show. In fact, this may be one of the epic shows of Streaming Idiots. So you're going to be able to tell all your grandchildren, yes, I saw that show live. I knew I couldn't say that with a straight face. Anyway, delighted that you're here. Did you know that Streaming Idiots is the longest continually running live streaming show about live streaming shows in the world, in the universe? You know, the galaxy and the universe. Yes, it is a dubious honor to be sure. We outlasted all the rest of them. But we're glad you're here, and we're going to talk live streaming today. And we're going to talk about live production. So that's going to be fun. So if you're in the production world, you'll want to make note. You'll want to get out pen and paper and start making notes about this right now. Real quickly about the setup today, we're coming to you on a vMix PC that I built, of course, because that's what I do for a living is build vMix PCs. We've actually got 9 of them in the workshop right now that are in various stages of being built for churches and schools and individuals. People that are doing talk shows. We even got one going to an emergency management agency so they can stay in touch with everybody in their community. What a great thought. Anyway, if we can help you with that, that's what we do. And this whole show actually is an infomercial for my company, Eastern Shore Broadcasting. So you can go to Eastern Shore Broadcasting by scanning that QR code with your phone later on. Don't do it now because you'll miss out on great content. And just a quick announcement, some of you have attended our vMix 101 training class in the past. And if that's the case, then you are now vMix 101 alumni. And coming up at the end of this month, not sure the date yet, but we'll get the dates out there. We will be starting a new vMix 101 class for all the folks that would like to take it. We'd love to have you. Basically, we take 6 weeks, 2 hours a day on a Tuesday afternoon and go through vMix from top to bottom. And it's a survey class. There's no doubt about that. It's not a deep dive into any particular part of vMix because vMix is huge. I mean, it's like an onion. You keep peeling back the layers and there's more and more and more. But we're going to peel back the layers 1 week at a time. If you've never taken the class, we'll have it in our store at easternshorebroadcasting.com. It's $199 for the class. If you've taken it before, then you, as an alumni, get to come for free. That's right. So any alum of any of our vMix 101 classes, you can sign up and take the class again for free. We'd love to have you take the whole thing, but if you just want to pop into the classes that you think you need to know more about, you're welcome to do that too. But a great little community forms with the folks that are in the class. You know, you get to know the people in your class, that kind of thing. And so some people end up collaborating later. Some end up being friends online. Some, provide technical support and advice and consult to each other. So it really works out to be a really great community. And I hope you'll consider joining it. vMix 101. Everything you need to know about vMix. Well, not everything, but we'll skim the surface of the top top 100 things that you need to know. One of the things that's been going on in the world, and if you've been sleeping under a rock since, say February or March, is that things that used to happen live, like maybe the International Broadcasting Conference this month in Amsterdam, are not happening live anymore. Conferences and conventions are gone. Big meetings are gone. All those kinds of things where people used to gather together, those are no longer happening. But the people that wanted them to happen to begin with still want them to happen. They still want to get people together. They still want to share the information that they want to share. And so what's happened is all this live event production has gone a different way. And we just happen to have in the studio today, well, actually not in our studio, but in his studio, we actually happen today an expert in the field. Anthony Burokas of Stream for Us, and you probably recognize his name because you've read some of his articles in Streaming Media Magazine or seen some of his videos.
I should have a magazine here.
You should. Or as a producer for Streaming Media, he did a wonderful interview with Martin Sinclair. There it is. That's it. And you can actually get that magazine in hard copy, or you can get it online. And there you go. There is an article written by, is that the one I wrote or is that the one you wrote? It took him a second. Okay. Anthony, welcome to the show. We're so glad you're here.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And I watch the show and I get little tidbits of information from everybody you have on the show. So it was quite an honor for you to say, hey, why don't you be on the show? And I'm like, okay.
Good.
Hope I can contribute as much as others do.
I think so. I think we'll probably get a couple of good nuggets out of you. At least I hope so. So tell us about Stream for Us. I mean, I know you've got your finger in a lot of pots, but let's start with the Stream for Us pot and tell us about Stream for Us.
Stream for Us. Well, I've been doing, we say streaming, but I've been doing multi-camera live switch stuff since back when you needed a Betacam, and did a cooking show on PBS for well over a decade, and that's how we did it. We did 4 cameras, live switch, recorded a tape, and then digitized all the tapes, and then edited the whole show down to fit broadcast and PBS, and just just doing the same thing. And now streaming is just being able to do the same thing and not have to go through a network or through some sort of aggregation type of entity. Everybody can stream directly to an audience, and that makes it, everybody can become a broadcaster. I mean, it's still helpful for the larger people if they want to have like a Roku channel or things like that. So you still have to like build stuff, but the fact that anybody can take like a cell phone and just hit stream and it goes to Facebook and YouTube, and if you're on the air, so to speak. Stream for Us specifically, I built a studio in Frisco called Frisco Studios, and this was before the epidemic, and I had 4-camera live switch, and the idea was to do podcasts and vlogs and serve the community, and I had lots of people come in and look at it and say this is great, but being as it's a studio space, it was 20 feet by 20 feet, and it had a white cyc wall and a light grid and 4 cameras and a TriCaster, and all this stuff was built out. But then when people want to come in, I didn't have a set already pre-built for them, because who knows what they want. Do they want a living room? Do they want a news desk? Do they want a standing virtual set? And so everybody wants something different. So, and all of that wasn't pre-built for people. So more often than not, I got asked if I could come to their location and stream something. We have a corporate presentation. Can you come and stream it? We have this event launch. We want you to come and stream it for all of our remote locations and things like that. And then the name Frisco Studios, while great when you have a studio in Frisco, was not so great when people wanted me to come somewhere like Dallas, which is like 20 minutes away. They're like, yeah, can you come down to Dallas? Do you do stuff in Dallas? I'm like, yes, I can do stuff in Dallas. And so I came up with Stream for Us just as a different brand to handle the streaming that was not very specifically, there's no physical tie to a city or a town or anything like that. So it's just the same services under a different name.
Got it. All right. So you started out bricks and mortar, and then your
Yep.
discovery was that you really needed to be prepared to get on the road. And so you bought stock
There's
in
a
Pelican
lot
cases.
more work if you can move.
Yeah,
Pelican
exactly.
I got 4 Pelican cases right there. And I have an SKB case at the edge of this table with my TriCaster in it, because as of January and February we were building out. We were going to be doing this every month. I don't know if we have any CrossFit people out there, but Spartan races are a big thing, and there was going to be this new competition that was going to be in stadiums across the country every single month, and we were going to, we were talking to them about being the live streaming provider of that. And so we were building out our kit, providing it, talking, putting the graphics together, and we were ramping up to do this thing and have it be plop, 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 every month going to be in a different city. And sure enough, that just sort of like, well, we're going to push it back a couple weeks. We're going to push it back a month. No, we're not going to have it this year. And that was basically, like pretty much anyone else in the industry who does live events, all of a sudden there were no events to do. And everybody was quarantining at home and things like that. So there was a big, and I hate to use this word, there was this big pivot. And I hate that word because everybody was using that word in these uncertain times, things like that.
Well, but that's the idea. I mean, if I used to play basketball as a young fella, so a pivot was a big deal. And a pivot says, you're going this way, and then quickly and immediately you're going that way. And that's what folks had to do in order to keep putting bread on the table. Tell me about your pivot. When did you discover you needed to, or that was the idea, or describe the process that you went through as your thinking changed?
It was partially out of necessity, because as work starts going away, you have to start trying to find other work. So I would reach out to everyone who I had been working with and new clients and telling them, listen, we can still do this. We can do this remotely. And a lot of people jumped right onto Zoom, and everybody knows what Zoom looks like. And I was like, I can make it look a lot better than that. You can have a lot better looking show. vMix, TriCaster, Wirecast, it doesn't matter. It's like there's so many tools that can give you the television look, and not the everybody sitting around poorly lit. I mean, this is a webcam. I'm on a webcam now. Webcams don't have to look crappy, but if you have a producer who can guide each of your guests through, here's how to use earbuds, here's how to put a light in front of you and everything, and have a clean background, you can make a webcam look and sound good. Well, maybe Tom's doing a bit of work to make my mic sound good, and but that's what a producer
which
does.
is the webcam mic, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, and so when I tell people, it's like the slogan of Stream for Us is we make you look awesome, because we're usually the producers on the the man behind the green curtain, and making everybody else look good. I'll fix the color, I'll make sure everybody's remote cameras are kind of color balanced and stuff like that, so they look the same, because I'm not using my matched cameras. I'm using their iPad and their Lavono and their HP and their Dell, and everything looks completely different, and everything, you kind of have to try and bring them all up to this common level, so that when you put them all in a 3 across, they look the same. And I reached out to a local arts organization that I had worked with previously, and they were at that same time, they would have monthly get-togethers with hundreds of people, and they were hard pressed because they couldn't do that anymore, and they still wanted to keep in the public eye, even though they couldn't have these huge get-togethers. And
Right.
So we started producing remotes. I just called them remotes. And so I would have 4 people dialed into me, and we would do a show, and I would do the whole, live switch here, and I did it vMix based because, I'm a TriCaster user. I have other tools, available to me. But when it came down to doing remotes, getting 4 people into a TriCaster is much harder than getting 4 people into vMix. Just because, at the right, level of product, it's built in. You literally, they go to a website, and they're in. And the mix minus and the audio and all of that is handled. Whereas with a TriCaster, it's like if you want 4 remotes, well, you need this external box that's right, TalkShow 4000 that's going to, then connect over to your TriCaster. And it's like, well, if I got a TriCaster Mini for $6,000 and I've got a TalkShow for $5,000, I've got $10,000 involved. Or I could go with vMix for $1,200 and a laptop for, that's what I had. I had a gaming laptop. But you can have a gaming desktop. You can, you start with like one machine, and then where you figure out the pinch points are, you contact somebody like Tom. Wait, can I get this right? No. See, I'm not good at this.
You're getting there.
You contact Tom.
50-50.
And you say, hey, I'm doing this. This is the graphics card I have. This is the processor I have, and I'm having this problem. And it's like, well, you need a better CPU. You need a better GPU. You need, whatever better you need, and you step up your system to handle remotes, which are different than handling cameras.
Right.
But that's how I did my pivot, and I started doing those shows, and then I would share them out to media, and other people would see those and say, oh yeah, you did this show. And I did a show for I normally would do the luncheon for the Dallas Fort Worth American Marketing Association chapter. And they same thing. They have this luncheon. They can't have the luncheon, so they want to do a virtual luncheon. So we did a couple of those. And then a guest on the show says, hey, we need to have this event, and you did the show, and I saw what you did on the show. Can you do that for us? So one thing leads to another. You got to start somewhere,
right,
and then hope that this leads to that, leads to this. Plus, if you haven't done remotes before, pivoting to remotes or changing gears or adapting and doing this other way of doing the same thing that you're used to doing, you need to build portfolio material so that when people are interested in seeing what you can do, you sit there and you have stuff on your YouTube channel or your website or whatever. You could say, look, you can have it look like this or like this or like this or like this. And that is what, because a lot of people, they only know Zoom and they don't know what you can do or what
right,
it can look like. So you need to be able to demonstrate, give them the eye candies that, oh, wow, I like that. Can you do something like that for me? Yes, we'll put your logo in there. We'll put your colored background and everything, and we'll have your show.
Well, and that's one of the beauties about the vMix call. And I noticed a comment in the chat here. Anthony is not in my studio. He's out in Texas. I'm in Alabama. But from Texas, he's able to send me a 1080 feed from his little webcam, which is doing remarkably well, I might add. And he looks as if he were in a different part of my studio here because it's that clear. And that's the beauty of vMix Call, is that it can bring in, and again, it's bandwidth dependent, but he can bring in a 1080p feed, I think 6 megabits per second, good quality audio. It's got automatic mix minus, so he doesn't hear himself back, and it's full duplex, which is really not necessarily the standard, but it means if he and I were to argue, we could actually talk over each other. And unlike other softwares where one of them ducks out and the other one, and the other becomes dominant, we can have a discussion, and you can hear both parts of the discussion, even if we're both talking at the same time. So vMix Call has been a great solution. In typical vMix fashion, they introduced vMix Call, 2 years ago? They anticipated that there was going to be this huge need for this, and then all of a sudden, kapow, out it comes, and it was the right tool for the job at the right time. And you had it in your arsenal. How did you even know about vMix?
Well, writing for streaming media, I kind of have to know about the tools that are out there. And I had actually interviewed Martin at NAB. So I actually had, when I was working on the NDI article, I had integrated vMix into the article because it's a software based, because I had the TriCaster which is a
Right.
hardware box, but I wanted to show there's a software tool, and of course there's multiple software tools that do NDI, but vMix was the one that I had picked to illustrate a laptop-based, or a software-based solution that does NDI.
Right.
And
Good choice.
and as I dig into it, and I have to say, your user group and the forums and the people involved in the user groups online have been so helpful in helping me sort of level up and really get to know some of the deeper capabilities. I mean, I feel like I've learned so much in the 6 months that I've like ramped up and really used it. But at the same time, there's scripting and there's all these commands and the web interface and remote capability. I feel I'm good, but at the same time, I feel I only know like 40% of the app, just because you kind of know what you need to know to do what you need to do, but I
Right.
don't know all of this stuff over here because I never use it.
If only
until
there
you
were
get
a
job
class that
no.
you could take that would give you an overview of the whole thing. Nobody has time for that. Nobody has time for that. I need to do it now.
Everybody should have time for that if you're all at home.
Well, but I need to know how to do. I've got this task that I need to accomplish. I've got to bring in 4 callers, and I've got to incorporate it into Zoom and maybe Skype. And I need to turn somebody upside down because they're coming to me upside down. I need to turn them right side up. So I need to know how to do all those things right now. I don't have time to know the rest of the thing. I get that. That's the real world. And so we figure out what we have to do. But when we do that, we learn this, and we learn this, and we learn this, and there are huge gaps in our knowledge. And so we miss out on how a lot of things can tie together even better than they do. And that's one of this is not intended as an advertisement for the vMix 101 class, but I guess really it is. Thanks for the segue, Anthony. That was really perfect. But so you plunged into vMix with a knowledge of TriCaster. So you knew what could happen. You just didn't know necessarily the buttons to push to make it happen. So it was just a matter of learning new buttons, right?
Right. Well, it's not just new buttons, because if I'm using a Ross hardware switcher or a Sony hardware switcher or a Roland hardware switcher, or that's learning the buttons. But vMix, that's the greatest thing I think people get. The greatest hurdle for people coming to vMix is the fact that vMix comes as sort of like a blank sheet of paper. You open it up and there's no inputs. There's nothing connected. There's no audio sources. There's no MEs. There's nothing. And then you have to build everything. I like, there was somebody who was selling this nice 8-source multi-view for $200 in one of the groups. And I was like, there's a huge market out there for people who want to pre-build, not programs, like
presets,
projects. They call it presets, but it's
vMix
like a project.
presets.
Let me open this project and sell them. And you can even make one that works like a TriCaster. Here you use the Aja IO or a Blackmagic card or something like that. That'll give you 4 hardware inputs, and then you use this control surface. And when you run this project, it'll work. Out of the box like a TriCaster. 1, 2, 3, 4 preview. 1, 2, 3, 4 ME1 titles and everything like that. And so if you're used to using the TriCaster control surface, you can easily transition to vMix. But at the same time, I have a vMix. I have a TriCaster Mini, which has 4 MEs, but it's still kind of limited in terms of 4 hardware inputs. And if I wanted to put 3 across, I actually have to use 2 MEs and trying to put them side by side. It's really a hard thing to do. And to go into vMix and sit there and say, you know what, I want to build something with 7 across. I mean, it'd be physically impossible on my Mini. And the vMix is just sort of like, sure, you got 10 layers, whatever, You're limited only by whatever hardware you run it on. And I was able to do so much more, and especially in terms of remotes, because like if you're using a hardware-based system and you have somebody come in, and I know people who are using other solutions because I have like 5 different kits, and I'm in all these different groups, and people are like, well, I want to send them something else back, or can I talk to the guests while we're in a show, but my microphone is not part of the show, and things like that. And the debrief capability in vMix is amazing. So as you start to like, well, wait, I can add subchannels, and then with the vMix call capability of like, I'm not going to send the caller program, I'm going to send them a multi-view. And then I'm not going to send the caller the program audio, I'm going to send them channel A or channel B or some other channel so that I can talk them. Like if I'm playing a video, I can count them in, and the video is going to end in 3, 2, 1, coming back to you, Bob, and that audio they hear in their earbuds, but it's not part of the show. I mean, that is like a whole level up than you're ever going to see in any cloud streaming tool, and even in some hardware tools, because you can't do that with a TriCaster after spending $10,000.
Sorry. Sorry.
I mean, it's one of those things that you don't realize the capability until you start to push it, and then certain things require workarounds. Like, how do I do this and how do I do that? And you ask in different groups, like,
right.
Is there a way we can do this or do that? And somebody's like, well, have you tried this? And that leads you to an idea, which leads you to another idea, which then gets you to a solution. One of the tasks that I've been working on is everybody still wants to use Zoom, but they want Zoom to look better. So now we're being asked to, hey, our event's going to be in Zoom, but we want you to produce something and then push it into Zoom. And so then you start saying, well, how do I get the audio on a single computer from one app to another app? And then you start learning about virtual audio cables and other solutions like that. It's you start to even expand beyond the vMix universe into other workflows and solutions, and then you get into hardware controllers like the Stream Deck to make punching a show a little bit easier, because again, vMix is on a computer, and a computer keyboard might not be the best thing. X keys, Stream Deck, the Scarhoy. I did a show on the Scarhoy, and I had like the teeniest little thing, and I was able to switch 6 inputs because it was a shift key, and then I was able to put in presets for the pan-tilt zoom and use a different key as a shift key to switch between the close-up and wide shots. And then the focus was always active with the knob, so that if I moved it just in the wrong spot, I can go and fix the zoom. I mean, it's just amazing what you can do with these remote controllers that have dedicated knobs and buttons for everything.
We're not in Kansas anymore. We're somewhere else altogether. Folks, if you're just joining us, Anthony Burokas is talking about the we're not going to call it pivot, but the move from live video production to virtual production and some of the challenges that he's faced that has forced him, kind of out of his comfort zone, coming from what I would call sort of a traditional broadcast background and using traditional broadcast tools. Now you're in the wild west, and the rules are different. And in fact, there are no rules, and you can do anything. I mean, it's like getting a Lego set. You can build anything you want with it. There's no rule that says that this one has to go with that one all the time. You can put them in backwards if you want. So you've taken your company from, number one, from bricks and mortar, outside of bricks and mortar, to live event production, not in your studio, out of your studio in distance locations, maybe driving distance. And now that market has, I won't say dried up, it evaporated. It died overnight virtually. And the new market is the same clients, but who want to continue to keep their name out there, to keep their visibility, to keep their community together, now doing it all virtually. And so now you have adapted your tool set, and your skill set in order to pull that off. How in the world if you're watching us from the FCC or from the FTC, just turn it off right now, because we're not allowed to talk about pricing, for fear of we're price setting. But
We are absolutely
let's
allowed to
talk about value
pricing.
and pricing. Let's talk about value and pricing. How do you put a value on this virtual market? Do you do it based on your time, based on the equipment you use, based on what you might have charged to do something like this on site? Give us some insight.
Well,
I'm not asking for the secret
that's
sauce.
actually where I started from. That's
Okay.
actually where I started from. I mean, I think back to years ago. There's this photographer who was very big when the Canon 5D became the filmmaking tool and DSLR video hit and everything. LaForêt, I think is his name, and he put out this, because people would ask him, well, since we're not using big broadcast cameras, we're using a DSLR, how do we charge for this and everything? And he came out with this, article or this paper that he published, called basically, you just need to know your cost of doing business, CODB, and it's sort of like, this is what I need to make in a year. These are what all my costs are in a year. And if I'm only doing this many events, this is how much each thing should cost. And people who are in the industry, they literally have, spreadsheets that sit there and say, well, for me to go on site costs this much, just to show up, for the truck, the people, the equipment to move and everything. This all has costs. But when we're doing remotes, obviously there's a whole lot less mobilization. But at the same time, I built this setup here. It's like I actually have lighting on me, because when I'm running a show, I have, for the setup and the tech checks, which we always do as part of the process, I want to make sure that people can see me and that I don't look like, I'm really dark and I'm doing a Zoom call. I want to look like I've put some thought into this and I know what I'm doing. And if I know how to make me look good, I can know how to make them look good. And I started with, what did it cost for me to be on site with my TriCaster? And that had a certain cost, and it had a certain cost per camera. Well, obviously I'm not charging per camera anymore, because they're going to use their laptop or their iPad or whatever it is. But I still have my costs, for me to run my gear, keep it set up and everything. And this particular thing, it's like I've got a bonded internet connection. Because we're now residential, and I don't have like a big fat, fiber pipe to the internet. I've got residential, and everybody else is home in the neighborhood. So I have to sort of make sure I've got some backup for that. So there's extra involved. And then of course I pay for services that, I paid for vMix, and I pay for hardware, and I pay for the computers, and I pay for a cloud service like Restream, so that if a client wants it to go to 2 different locations, I can only send one up, minimizing my congestion. And then once it's in the cloud, I tell Restream, okay, I want you to send to this Facebook page and this Facebook page and this YouTube page and whatever, not Instagram. And,
Right.
So all of those things have hard costs that have to be paid every single month, so that when it comes to, it's like, well, we want you to do this thing, you have to make sure that you're recouping your costs, your overhead. I mean, this is sort of like Business 101, which they should teach in every video production class, because when you graduate, you become a freelancer and you need to know Business 101. And
Yes.
I said, well, if my main console, is being used and it's all this gear and me, it's like, if you were to rent, like I've worked gigs for other companies, and, for me to show up for the day just to engineer and push the buttons, not even my gear, I just show up. I don't even set it up. You're talking $750, or more, depending upon the length of the day or the complexity of the event. So for me to operate a remote still has my cost to it. I have to get paid. And then I also have to pay off the gear and pay for the software I'm using and everything else. So, I came out with a rate to do an hour show, which that's what I was doing the most of. It's like, okay, if you're going to do an hour show, this is what the hour show costs. And then I give a little bit of leeway if we run a little bit long, or if I do 10 minutes of pre-show, just the countdown lead in. I don't count that. I bill for the hour show. But in addition to that, especially with vMix, because vMix is not completely structured already,
Right.
you have to build the show. So there's a
Right.
show build cost. And and it depends upon the complexity of the show. If it's very simple and it's sort of like a talking head and a simple title, sort of like this show. I'm not demeaning your show in any way. That's one cost. But I've done some of the arts shows.
Okay, folks, show's over.
You have one guest. I would have 4 guests. Each guest, or I had hosted 3 guests, and each guest had media. So there were shows with upwards of 100 different pieces of, stills, artwork, video clips for each
PowerPoints,
person.
sure. Yep.
Into little buckets and stuff like that, and all that stuff has to be organized and situated so I can get it and brought in and make sure it's in the right order, because we're going to talk from this to this to this to this to this, and so that show build is more complex than a simple business conference where I'm going to have 5 people on and I just need to change the title. So there's a big difference in complexity between the show builds. And then if I have a repeat client, there's a rebuild cost, because now that show's done. Now you're going to give me a whole ton of new artwork. So I have to dump all that and then, bring in all these new bins and, assign them and make sure everything's ready. And so there's a rebuild cost. So, and then the tech check. Always tech check, because on remotes, one of the most best ways to make sure that everything is working great for everyone is to spend time a couple of days beforehand, a week beforehand, and you have a tech check, which I have a tech check right after the show, where the callers call in to your system so they get familiarized with what that process is. And then you sit there and say, yeah, you can't do it with the dining room window behind you. That's a bad idea because you're in silhouette. So if you can rotate 90 degrees and have a wall behind you, that would be better. And then take a table lamp, put it on the table behind your laptop, so now there's light hitting your face. And then, yeah, can you use earbuds? Because when we're going to have 3 of you on and you start talking over each other, the echo cancellation starts eating up everybody else's words. And you start working through this, so it's part of the process that we go through to make sure that we tell everybody, we make you look awesome. And this is part of the process to make you look awesome. This is why we don't look like Zoom, because there's a producer who knows some tips and tricks to make sure that you look better. And that all comes out in the tech check. And, so for an event we're putting together next week, we have a couple checks today, and then we have more on Friday with different people who, we have to do it on their schedule when they're available. But it's a critical part of making sure that the final program you put on, you're not hit with all these different surprises like, oh, yeah, I didn't know you were going to be in the middle of a lunchroom with all this noise. And yeah, that's not a good idea. So, what does it say? And pickled herring. I'm sorry, just glanced over the comments for a second and got distracted.
I know.
But yeah, so
understand.
there's a build cost, there's a tech check cost, there's a show cost, and then if they're going to do more than one, then there's a rebuild cost. And the show cost, if it's going to be large in multiple days, then it's sort of like, well, then I can put in a discount on that as opposed to just like doing this 1 hour thing.
Right.
And, so it all kind of comes together, and everybody's costs are going to be different because the cost of your hardware is different. The cost of your overhead is different. The cost of your expenses are all different. And it all comes down to what is your cost of doing business.
So will you venture estimate?
Well, I mean, I could tell you, like in general, and obviously, I will throw numbers out there right now. I do about $100 an hour for a build, and that is because there's always a lot more going on. There's all these emails and talking with the people on the phone, so there's a lot of stuff that isn't counted. So that when I start counting things, it covers all the other things.
Okay.
I have one person who was looking at me, working with me on a graduation, and I have been back and forth with them over dozens of emails and 2 phone calls, and none of that's built, but it's time.
Right.
To put together the estimates, and then they change it. Oh, it was going to be outdoors, now it's going to be indoors. Well, I got to put together a whole new estimate. Then I got to work with them and sort of like, get all these details. Okay, so where is it indoors? Is it in an atrium? Is it in an auditorium? No, it's going to be in a classroom. Okay, does the classroom have lighting? No, it's only fluorescent lights, downlight. So do we need to bring lights? It's just this long process of asking all of these questions to get the details that we need to make them look awesome. And that time is sort of built into the pre-build, so that when we do actually get booked, then it's like, okay, so pre-build is $100 an hour. Tech check is using the whole studio, but there's, we allow certain things to happen. It's much more casual. So that's I build at about $100 an hour. And then when we're actually live and we're using all of the assets and everything is go time and multiple people are coming in and we're bonding. So we're using the bonding service, we're using the restreaming service and everything. Then that I usually bill at about $600 an hour. But again, that's my cost based on my cost of doing business. And for other people, it may be less expensive, For other people, it may be more expensive. It's like, well, listen, I got to pay for my 100 down, 100 up fiber line, and that costs me $200 a month. Okay, your cost of doing business is different than mine. So that's the key thing is to always to know what you need to get, but also making sure you cover what your costs are and you're aware of all these different costs. And then if you're going to bring in somebody else, let's just say somebody else is going to handle the Zoom part of it, and they're going to be like fielding the questions and feeding them back to the moderator. So it's not just me, it's somebody else. So they got, there's a cost for them too, and their gear. So it adds up, but it's the same thing as if it was live. I bring my TriCaster, that's a cost. I have my cost. You have cameras, per camera cost, camera operator costs. There's an audio operator cost if there's like a bunch of wireless microphones that have to be, controlled. You have in-room audio in addition to the streamed audio. You have to have, an audio mixer. You have lighting, blue up lights, fade up, fade down. So you've got a lighting person. Normally if you were going to do an event at a conference, there's going to be a bunch of tables somewhere with more than a dozen people, and each person is getting paid and all that gear is getting paid for. It's the same thing with remotes, even though they're simpler. vMix can do both the audio and the video and all of the mixing and the titles and the graphics and the recording. But I'll do live shows where there will be two people in front of two laptops and they are doing the lower thirds. Two graphics operators, two laptops, and they're feeding it into a hardware switcher that doesn't do graphics inside of it, but the person who's operating the switcher, the technical director, he brings up the title, but he doesn't switch between titles. He doesn't, do any of that. And then there's video playback, and then there's separate video recorder people and decks, and all of that is separated out when you've got hardware. The fact that we have it all integrated into one software package doesn't make it not cost anything. It makes it more cost effective. But if you were going to do this conference and it was going to cost you $20,000 for the people just to sit at those tables, then when I tell you it's going to cost you $5,000 for me and another person to do it on vMix, you saved a lot of money, but it still gets done. But it still costs money. It's not like, oh, well, why can't you're just using an app on a laptop. Why can't you just, do it for $100 an hour? Because it's not just the app, it's an expertise.
Good. And you don't have to be shy about that. I mean, you don't have to feel guilty that you're charging for your expertise, because it wouldn't happen well
Absolutely not.
Without it.
Absolutely. I mean, I went so far as to, I went back to my website. There's actually a checklist page, a quick quote. And it's a page that people can go through and answer a bunch of questions and send that into me. And I can look at it and say, hey, somebody's interested in something. And it gives me what date, what kind of location, how many people, how many remotes, how many camera operators, so it enables me to put together a quote quicker. But then at the bottom, I actually added a question that says, what is your budget? Because, I don't want to sit there and put together a $10,000 budget if somebody's budget is $1,000.
Right.
It's like people, dream of the moon, but they're, it's like, what's one of those, axioms, they want, gold on a, something else budget.
Yeah, they want champagne on a beer budget. That's right.
There you go. Thank you.
Yes.
So I actually put that up front. I put that at the bottom of the page, and I says, listen, I need to know if we're actually going to be in the same page, so that when I start putting the quote together, if I'm not fitting within their budget, I could just send them an email saying, listen, we're looking at our costs are going to be, we're going to be in the $10,000 to $15,000 range, and you said your budget is $3,000. So I don't think we're the right people for you.
Right.
or you'd have to significantly change your expectations for what the production will be.
Or you have to come up with more money. Yeah.
That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen.
Really?
Either the money is there or the money is not there. I haven't had anybody come to me and say it's $3,000, and then after talking with them, get 10.
Wow.
Because they're in companies, companies are all like, well, our incomes are down, our revenues are down, and we're trying to make do with
Right.
less as well. So
Right.
we were going to spend $10,000 on this conference, but now if we could do it remote for 3, we
Yeah.
can still keep our yearly budget sort of intact,
Right,
because we're not going
right.
to make as much money off of the conference as we were going to make if it was live.
Well, I think that's gonna flow. I think, you're figuring out how to do something new. They're figuring out how to do something new. They don't have a clue
Yeah.
what value to put on it, other than what the cost might be that they think they can absorb. But then they're going to have to balance that out and say, all right, if I've got 3, that's all I've got, and it's going to cost 10. But if I don't do it, the effect is going to be way more than 10. And I need to figure out a way to come up with 7 more in order to make that happen. I've had numerous folks that are clients of mine building streaming PCs for them. And when I come back and say, it's going to cost $6,000 to do what you want to do, and their budget was $4,500, and they're going to say, well, can you do it for $4,500? No, we can't.
No.
We have to do less in order to cost
Make it
less. But if you want to do what you want to do, this is and I've had people come back, after a week and say, okay, we went out and found the funds, because that's what we know we need to do. It's not that we want to do it; we need to do it. We have to do it in order to make things work on our end.
Right. And in terms of like you're building and configuring a hardware package that's going to generate them money.
Yes.
And it all has to do with return on investment. If you
Yes.
feel you're going to get the return on the investment that you make on hardware, then by all means invest in the hardware, because it's just going to pay dividends after you've paid it off.
That's right.
And the same can be said for events, because I've had people who came to me and they didn't want to do a virtual event. I says, listen, you were going to do a live event and you were going to invite people, and you get 200, 300 people come to your conference from around the country because it's held at a certain time, whether they can or can't come, whether they want to come or not, or other family
Right.
obligations. And then they're here, and then they've got to pay for the hotel, and they've got to pay for food, and they've got to pay for travel and all of this. And then you're making your little pile of money from this group of people who did show up. And I said, listen, if you put this thing virtual, you can reach more people because they don't have to travel. They can fit it in to their schedule. They can not have to pay for food and everything else. It's like, when the movie Trolls came out, it was sort of like, they wanted to charge you $20 to see the movie. And everybody's like, $20 to stream a movie? Are you kidding? And I'm like, well, listen, if you have 3 kids, if you have 2 kids, and you went to see the movie at a theater, you're paying at least $10 per ticket. So that's $40. And then you're buying the 2 kids popcorn, which is another $40. And then if you get a soda, 1 soda right there, that's $40. And, so $20 at home, that's a
Deal.
That's a bargain. But anyway, so, you have an event, and let's just say you could have reached 300 people. In previous years, you were on track, 300, 250, 300, 310, whatever. But if you put it online and you put it behind a paywall and say, listen, we're going to give you the same content, and you're going to get the same learning, you're going to get the same education, you're going to get the same people, but now it's virtual, you can reach a worldwide audience. It doesn't have to be local, it doesn't have to be the people from America who are going to come in. You can get a worldwide audience. And there's these tools that I've seen online called EverWebinar and Webinar Jam. And EverWebinar is actually pretty cool in that you take your webinar and you record it using their tools, of course, and then you make it available for whenever your customer is available. They sign in, they pay their money, and they enjoy the webinar as if it was live. They can still comment, and you still get the comments and can reply to them, and they see other people commenting in real time so they can get other tips and tricks from other people. and it's available 24/7. So when somebody in India or Malaysia or China or Japan or, you know, South Africa wants to watch this webinar at 9 in the morning their time, they can. They're not constrained by what time you do it. And so there's lots of ways to derive multiple times revenue from online streaming events and, you know, remotes, as I would call them.
Now you're getting into the subject of our next visit. So let's don't go too far into that one.
Okay.
Yeah, we could go on and on and on about this. And Anthony, I appreciate all of your experience. What I'd love to do now is to close out the show, go into the post show, so that the folks watching can ask some questions, because there've been some questions that I've been kind of keeping one eye on the chat, and we want to give those folks a chance to answer questions. So as part of the show, let me thank you for coming on, Anthony Burokas with Stream for Us, also a producer for Streaming Media, and numerous other things that you'll have to explore on your own when you get to know him better. So can you hang out for a few more minutes and we'll take some questions in the post show?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Well, of course. This is the easy stuff. Okay. So we're going to put him on mute for a second. We're going to close out the show and we'll be right back in the post show with your questions. So if you had a question and it's not in the top of the chat, now is the time to go back and get it in the top of the chat. Oh, by the way, if you're interested in the vMix 101 class, keep an eye out in the Streaming Idiots group on Facebook, or the Eastern Shore Broadcasting page on Facebook, or our website, easternshorebroadcasting.com, because there'll be information on the vMix 101 class coming up at the end of this month. We'll be right back. Out. Awesome. And we are in post show, and Anthony's eyeballs are moving, so I can tell that he's not frozen. And I got his mic on, so if you guys have got questions, I'm going to scroll back and see if I can get them. But if you want to answer some questions, now is a good time.
I have questions.
You have questions. How could you have questions? You were talking. No, I did so love.
You still building those Acme computers?
Oh yeah. Oh golly, yeah.
That little tank box of that little tank box thing.
We got a bunch of 60-year-old ones at auction. They were beat to death. I mean, you wouldn't believe some of the dents in the sides of these cases. I mean, and they still work. Holy cow! Mm-hmm. But they're aircraft aluminum chassis with all sorts of protections built into them, and we're just stripping them apart, sending all the outside pieces off to be powder coated, and rebuilding them with I9s on the inside. They're screamers. Oh, yeah. They're great. They're fun. You want one?
I'm good.
Okay. He's good today, but we'll see. All right. Let's see. We have questions. Ed H. is asking, Anthony, about your favorite talkback setup. Yeah, there was some chat early on about, how do you do a back channel? How do you do off-air comments? Share a little. We don't have time for another show because talkback is an entire show all of its own.
Oh my God! Yeah,
isn't it? And I mean, because you're just now like
it is absolutely.
You're coming to it for the first time in the last 3 months.
Yeah, and I learned a lot from other people in the groups who were generous enough to share how to use multiple channels in vMix. And so what I do is I have all my guests on A. I put myself on B, they listen to B, I listen to A, so I don't hear myself with an echo. And then when it's time for the show, I put A on to the master. And then so pre-show, the A is off. Well, there's nothing on the pre-show except for like video and things like, the pre-show music. And when I go to show, I just hit the one master and all of the guests are on the show. And that's how I do it at the basic level. Yeah, but I know there's people they get much more complex. Like I have a show coming up where it's going to be a hybrid show where there's going to be two people in the room, as well as a remote MC, as well as other possible remotes, and all of that's going to go to Zoom. And it's like, whoa, okay, then it gets a little bit too complex to just add another, a channel on vMix. You actually need a comm solution. And, there's a lot of, internet-based, phone-based, solutions that you can run on a cell phone and then have your comm channels just completely separate from the video, which greatly simplifies doing their video part of it.
Right. Couldn't have said it better myself. Okay, so let's see. Athena Productions is asking, do you have a checklist that you can share with us?
Do I have a checklist? Like this? No, I can't share this checklist with you because this is for the show that I'm going to be doing later today. And it applies to my show. I don't necessarily have a checklist per se.
Or do you just take last week's
vMix
checklist and go back and edit last week's checklist to become this week's checklist?
Checklists for me only work if you're doing the same thing over and over.
Okay.
And a lot of my work changes from event to event. So
it's custom.
The checklist that I would use for the Frisco Arts show, where we have that huge pre-build and we have all this art content, is going to be completely different than the checklist I would have for the hybrid show, where I've got 2 live guests and my mix and then remote host and then other remote guests. The 2 checklists would not have anything to do with each other. I mean, other than the fact that we're still going to need to do a tech check for the remote people, the remote guests,
right, to
make sure that they're in the right spot, they've got enough bandwidth, and they know to use headphones and everything like that. Other than that, the 2 aren't really close enough related for me to use the same checklist for everything. But if you're somebody that does like sporting events or something like that, and we're going to do baseball, 3 times this weekend, we're going to do it every weekend till the fall, then having a checklist works. But you got to build your checklist for you, because my checklist isn't going to help you, and my checklist for one show isn't going to work for the next show.
How do you go about developing your checklist? You meet with a client, they say, okay, this is what we need, and you're beginning to put your notes together, and that kind of morphs into your checklist?
Pretty much, like I says, like with this graduation thing, it's working with the client, it's that time that you put in and the experience that you have doing it that, sits there and says, listen, I need to ask about audio, I need to ask about lighting, I need to ask about, how people are going to move through the space, so if they're going to have, all these students coming through, are they coming left to right to left? Is there a lifted stage? So I'm going to have a camera on site, and then they want an announcer. Okay, so then I need audio, and that announcer is also going to need to feed the room, so I'm going to need a powered speaker. So I'm building that checklist of, stuff to bring and stuff to set up as we're talking about what the event is going to be. And of course, if I'm doing this and I need a person doing announcing, and they need a microphone and an audio mixer and an amplified speaker so that people can hear, that has nothing to do with any other checklist for any other show, because it's not needed.
Okay, there we go. All right, let's see. There's a comment that's about ready to scroll off from Taekwondo Replays, thanking you for your videos on the B4 and M43 lenses.
Yes.
I don't know, doesn't make sense to me, but I wanted to catch it before it scrolled out.
It makes sense to me.
Okay, very good. Rich says, this is Rich Ignacio, he does jet ski racing out in California, and now he's doing a lot of it remotely. He said, this is for Anthony. Most people are clueless with technology. I can't get people to even know what an HDMI plug is sometimes. Do you find that, or are your people pretty tech savvy?
It's a mixture. There's people who, remote guests or remote participants who, just don't understand the need for wearing earbuds. They're like, well, I can hear you fine. I'm like, yeah, but that's not the problem. And, I had one person who, is a famous person, and was like, well, listen, we need more light on you. You're in a room and the back wall has these downlights, but I need light on you. So he's got this little desk light, and he turned it on, and it was just like this. And it's like, okay, can you find a way to soften that? I mean, obviously he's not a lighting designer. He doesn't understand that kind of concept, but it's my role to work them through it in terms that they can understand in a way that doesn't sound like I'm talking down to them, because I know more.
Right.
It's a little bit of a challenge. It's like, oh, well, that looks really good. There's a way you can soften it. Can you bounce it off of a wall in front of you or something like that? Oh, look at that. Hey, there we go.
I bet you're good
So
at that.
it's something you build with, again, experience. It comes with experience. Some people are really good at it. I don't know, I guess I'm kind of in the middle. And then there's, people who are like, oh no, that looks bad. Well, wait, that
Right.
doesn't tell them what they need to do.
Right.
It's like, because, you have to give them the instruction. You have to help them get to that point where they look awesome. And, sometimes they don't know what they need to do, but they're happy to do it. And then on the other hand, I've had people who, are tech savvy. And I worked with one customer who has their own home studio and everything, but they wanted to use a particular camera and a particular microphone. And our tech check took 45 minutes because for whatever reason, the computer that they were using wouldn't allow them to pick between one thing and the other. And, they had to reboot and disconnect and try again and go through preferences. And eventually they got it to work and it looked awesome. But, sometimes it's just having a lot of patience too, I guess.
There's only one way to get patience. Otis, kind of tagging in there, asking how you handle lighting for guests, and it sounds like you've kind of touched on this. Let's see. Marie says, how do you solve the issue with those webcams that are placed under the laptop screen? That doesn't make sense to me. Maybe her English, her translation.
There's a couple. There's a couple that, there are a couple that are actually under the screen. Because
Really?
They have these super thin bezels. Yeah.
Oh, so at the bottom of the screen instead of the top.
Yep.
Oh
Which
my gosh.
I guess is okay for Zoom, but I'm actually talking to my laptop, which is on a pedestal.
Yes.
It's raised up, and then the laptop screen. So my camera is like right in front of me because
That's a
everything is
huge
lifted up.
hand.
And
He's got such big
I
hands.
just tell them. So I tell them to raise their laptop.
I love it.
It's like
That's right.
especially if they're like if they're in America, I tell them, do you have an Amazon box laying around somewhere? Maybe, perhaps, put it underneath your laptop. Bring your laptop higher. Use
There
the
you
book.
go.
I can't tell them to use the telephone book anymore. So, just whatever they can do to like get it higher so that the camera is about face level as opposed to like being down there. Yeah, because definitely looking up is not a good thing. And, we all still get that all the time and we do the best we can. But, I tell them, if you can elevate the laptop, or it's harder if people are using their phone because they're not going to have a stand.
Right.
Most people don't have like a selfie stick with a tripod base that can put the phone at this level so that it looks great. They don't. Even worse for an iPod. Most people are not going, or an iPad, or a tablet. They're not going to have a tablet holder that'll hold it 4 feet in the air.
Right.
But a laptop, if they're using a laptop, it's like just start propping it up on stuff. Actually,
books.
that's what I ended up doing. We had for the one show, the Frisco Arts show, the laptop was just giving us, it was just not working right. So 5 minutes before show, she switched to an iPad and literally just put the iPad like on top of the screen for the laptop. So it kind of had the same tilt, almost had the same height, and she could talk to it, and it still had the return video, and she plugged her headphones into it, and it was a last minute like trying to get things to work right, and it worked great. The whole show was solid. So
That's
it's just
awesome.
getting it elevated to fix that. What else we got?
Awesome.
Books are good. Yes, books are awesome.
All right, let's see. Marie
The other
has
way, yes.
Marie has a comment that I'll let you read on. You're on. Ed says that for lighting and headsets, he sends a link with a PDF diagram with the concept explained. Well, that's nice. That's a good idea, Ed. You got to get people to read it,
and
but that's a start. That's a start.
I have a basic rundown checklist on my website, which is, you can see kind of down here, stream4.us as the website. And on there's a checklist page that ways that we help you look awesome, or how to look awesome. And it's a checklist for people who are going to be guests on the show or on something that I'm producing. And so they can go there and like start going down the list, and it goes through the basics. There's other like I don't have a layout or a diagram of where to put lights, so they shine on the face. But I talk about have lighting that, comes towards you as opposed to behind you and things like that. So I think that's fairly important, is to have something, it's not necessarily a checklist, but it's something that, you can email out to potential guests and they can read through. And, I have to say that, I send it out to like guests all the time. And then when we get to the tech check, I can tell how many actually did read it through, because half of them still don't show up with headphones. And I'm like, okay, like that was like the second thing on the list, headphones.
There you go. All right. Well, I think we've nailed most of the questions here. You are an invaluable resource. Thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing. I hope we can do this again.
Well, you are an invaluable resource. I don't build anybody's systems. I just use them.
Well, we're having a lot of fun doing it. I'll tell you what. I hate to see, you spend time building these systems and you kind of get to know them, and it's kind of like having a child in a way. And then I have to send it off into the cold, cruel world. But I'd rather have it here so that I can play with it. And especially when I get these screamers, we're building a couple of 12-core machines right now. They're just going to be nasty.
Wow.
And, I don't want to see them go. Gee whiz. Anyway. Well, but thank you. Thank you so much for your time and your knowledge and your sharing with the community, not just today, but in the Streaming Idiots group and the other groups that you participate in, and your work on Streaming Media Magazine with your articles and your reviews. And folks, if you want to go to YouTube and follow Anthony on YouTube, I think it is IEBA Communications on YouTube. Is that right?
If you're interested in the tech channel, the tech channel is IEBA.com, IEBA.com.
IEBA.com.
And that is IEBA.com, because IEBA is the parent company that,
yes,
I've had for 20 years. And then when I came to Frisco, I opened a physical space, so that had a name, and now I do the streaming services, that has a name. But the IEBA.com has all kinds of tech stuff, like the person who was talking about putting big ENG lenses, zoom lenses, on Micro Four Thirds cameras, so you can have this like 15x zoom with a nice smooth zoom, and it stays in focus, and it has a constant aperture. Things you can't do with a still camera lens, you can do with an ENG lens, and you can put it onto a GH4, GH5, and any Micro Four Thirds camera, like even the Blackmagic Pocket cameras, and all those videos are on there as well, and a lot of streaming video content now. So it's IEBA. I can type it into the comments. IEBA.com.
Okay. There you go.
That's what
anyway, Anthony's got he's got years and years worth of videos there, and all sorts of reviews that he's done on all sorts of products. You'll have a lot of fun going back, and he has a tremendous presence on those videos. So you'll want to get that and enjoy that. There we go, right there it is, IEBA.com. Got it, Anthony. You're a treat. Hang around for just a second. We're going to go into the post show, but for the rest of you, thanks for watching, and we will catch you. We'll catch you next week when we have a special guest that we don't have a clue who it is. So we'll be back then. Thanks.